We're at the last lap of the Anambra governorship election with voting done in Ihiala local government area. Collation is billed to commence by 9 p.m. and the winner announced. We'll do a post-mortem of today's conduct and what to expect later tonight. The Senate and the House of Representatives passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, incidentally at a time the country is conducting an election. They have thrown their weight behind electronic transmission of results, but how far-reaching is that? Hello and welcome to Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikiolu here in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, I'm nearly 500 kilometers away from Ihiala local government area of Anambra State, where the supplementary election has now been concluded, well, voting. But as we have proven to you over the past 6 days of our continued coverage of that election, distance is not a barrier. Well, we have a heavy presence of our crew in Anambra, and we're counting down to 9 p.m. when collation of results is billed to resume. Don't forget, this is the final lap to the victory line for the frontline candidates that emerged after voting was concluded in 20 of the 21 local government areas of Anambra State. But I'll tell you this for free. This final lap in Ihiala local government area was no smooth sprint for Inec at all. Well, it came with a lot of hurdles and potholes, you might call it, to navigate through, mostly tied to the usual suspect, logistics. So why is logistics, as they call it, still a major challenge in our elections? And how did the people of Ihiala participate in the polls? What about the security threats which Inec raised earlier? Well, it's a lot to dissect. But first, some news on the president. Let's tell you that President Muhammadu Buhari has arrived Paris today for a one-day official visit as guest of President Emmanuel Macron of France. The president, who arrived at Le Bourget Airport this afternoon, is expected to engage in bilateral meetings with his French counterpart on issues of mutual interest to both countries, particularly on strengthening economic ties, improving partnership on security, education, as well as halting COVID-19 related threats. Now, according to a statement issued by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, the President will also join other global leaders like the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and Prime Minister of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, as well as heads of international organizations, civil society, and the private sector in a Paris Peace Summit. The president left Nigeria on October the 31st for the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Scotland. Well, there's a lot happening back here in Nigeria's political space. Here's our political roundup.
The National Assembly resumes plenary after taking a 3-week recess to work on the 2022 appropriation bill. First on the list of matters of urgent public importance is the siege on the residence of Justice Mary Odili. The upper chamber condemned what it describes as an invasion of her residence and mandated the Inspector General of Police to make the outcome of its investigation public.
We commend the Inspector General of Police for the arrest already made and investigation panel he has instituted. And then thirdly, we urge the Inspector General of Police to make public the outcome of the investigations within 2 weeks.
Over to the House of Representatives, which is wading into the matter of the missing Vanguard journalist, Todwe Salem. The minority leader, Ndudeli Melu, who raised the matter as a motion of urgent public importance, informed the House that Mr. Salem has been missing for almost a month. The House is giving its committees on national security and intelligence, police and interior 2 weeks to work with the service chiefs and security agencies to solve the mystery.
The House is therefore concerned that if necessary measures are not put in place to curtail the indiscriminate disappearance of innocent Nigerians living in Abuja, the federal capital may soon become a breeding ground for kidnappers and bandits.
Stakeholders of the All Progressives Congress in Yola South local government area of Adamawa State have petitioned the national headquarters of the party to stop what they term a looming crisis following the just concluded ward and local government congresses of the APC in the state. While addressing the media in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, the members say the ward and local government congresses did not hold in accordance with stipulated party guidelines. Therefore, they reject the sworn-in members of the ward and local government executives in Yola South.
We have not recognized the so-called ward congresses and local government excos in Yola South.
There's palpable tension in Langtang North local government area of Plateau State, where a political crisis is brewing between the ruling All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party over the chairmanship seat. The Plateau State High Court had ordered the newly elected chairman of the LGA, Azolfa Rimvan, to vacate the position for the incumbent, Ubandoma Lavan, whose tenure has not expired. Having obtained the judgment, he proceeded to occupy the seat, but the occasion was cut short as the newly elected chairman objected to the move with a complaint to the police about forceful entrance into the office by the incumbent.
The court said there was nothing like election. It was null and void. As far as they are concerned, it's an exercise in futility, waste of public fund, and they declared me to go back to my office, and it's an executory judgment.
It may interest you to know that that judgment has nothing to do with either Langtang North local government nor my humble self.
So let's now turn our attention to the big one, the Anambra governorship election. Well, it's been weeks and months of preparations, and we got a first taste on Saturday when Inec conducted that election, but it was a stalemate of sorts as one local government area was outstanding, which is Ihiala, and Inec decided to conduct that election today. So voting is done in Ihiala. All eyes are now on Inec to make the votes count and announce the winner of the election. But here's a breakdown of what's at stake in Ihiala, so to speak. So those are the numbers of areas and wards in Ihiala. The number of polling units, 323. But the big one, which is the number of voters, or at least votes at stake in this supplementary election, 148,407 registered voters in that local government area. So if you were to look at the top local government areas in Anambra State with number of registered voters, Ihiala is actually 7th on that list. So this is what you might call a major battleground for the political parties, well, at least the frontliners as it stands right now. Of course, you have polling units with less than 50 registered voters, but this just paints a picture of what to expect. But overall, as it stands right now, with the results we have seen so far, you will see that, well, APGA is in the lead with a number of local government areas that the party has secured. The PDP has 1, the YPP as well has 1, and APGA has a total of 18 local government areas won by its candidate, Chukuma Soludo. And there you see the one for PDP, Ogbaru, and in Newi North. So that sort of paints a picture of what's at stake here and what to expect tonight, as it were. But let's get into the conversation. I mean, what are the lessons as we look ahead to future polls, Osun, Ekiti, and of course the 2023 general elections? Tonight on the program, we're joined by Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us from our Abuja studio. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Okutepa. I know that you have different lenses through which you will view this election, but let me just ask for your immediate thoughts. From the conduct of the election on Saturday to the conduct of the election today, what would you say has been your personal opinion about this election?
Well, Coyote, thank you for having me this night. And I think that Nigerian democracy, speaking for myself, is a militarized democracy in which the freedom to elect candidates of our choice or candidates at an election has been characterized by either threats of some group of persons who says that election shouldn't hold, and we are aware of the order and the subsequent suspension of that order by some group of persons, and then the election, the number of security agencies that were sent to Anambra to conduct these elections, which is so huge, that in my estimation, in a place where democracy is actually practiced and where the election is supposed to be free, fair, and credible, the presence of military personnel and other security agencies, in my estimation, may have unwittingly infused electoral timidity in some persons to come out and vote. So having said that, looking at the statistics you have reeled out, my personal opinion, which views have consistently held, notwithstanding that there are decisions of our court, is that by the provisions of Section 179, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, the Constitution has clearly defined how the governorship elections in any particular state of Nigeria is to be won. And it says in any election to the office of the governor, where there are more than 2 or 3 candidates, a person shall be deemed to have been elected as governor of that state, where 1, he has the highest number of votes cast at the election, 2, and he has not less than 1/4 of all the votes cast in each of at least 2/3 of all the local governments area in the state. From your analysis, therefore, Anambra State, I'm told, has 21 local government. A political party is said to have won in 18 out of 21. So when you make your mathematical calculation and deduction, therefore, you will understand from my own perspective as lawyers that the election into the governorship of Anambra State by constitutional provisions has clearly been won by a candidate.
Well,
but I'm
Mr.
not going to
Kutepa,
name it, but you know from...
The good thing is that, I mean, you're a senior advocate of Nigeria. You're not a member or an official of Inec. So we'll just stick to our area of expertise, as it were. I understand that there are a lot of projections looking at the figures, but that's why we have Inec. And Inec has the constitutional backing to conduct elections, not just conduct it, announce the winners. And that's what we're looking forward to by 9 p.m. today. But a couple of issues you have raised nonetheless. We've talked about militarization of elections, and I'd like to begin from there as a follow-up. So you said that there was voter timidity, as it were. But if you were to choose between voter timidity or election timidity, as you said, and election violence, which one would you go for? Because the police will tell you, the military will tell you, the reason we're deploying is to forestall violence, and you know the background of the state so well. So which would you choose, really, if you were to choose?
Well, the purpose of security agencies by our law and our constitution is to maintain peace and stability, but you are also aware of the historical and the antecedents of our electoral processes in Nigeria, where allegations are made about, I'm not saying that happens in this Anambra State, but if we draw our experiences from previous cases where violence were covered, were reportedly unleashed on electorates and voters in an elections, Nigerians are not people who forget some sort of intimidation very easily. So that could have some kind of influence on the electorate. Nigerians will be asking you and I, when did our military and the security agencies become born again to maintain absolute political neutrality? Those are questions that those who are on the field should be able to provide an answer to it. But from what I have seen on the television and pages of newspaper, one may give kudos to our security agency in this one. But the point I was driving at, which appears to you to be an announcement of result, which I am not competent to do, is analysis of section 179, subsection 2 of our Constitution. And when the constitutional provisions are made, the question then is, and it has covered the field, as to how a candidate, either in the office of the office of the president or the governorship of a state, is to emerge, where constitutional democracy is practiced and the rule of law holds sway, and the superiority of our Constitution, which is the ground norm, put it technically, the supremacy of the Constitution holds sway, then we look onto the Constitution and not onto any electoral guideline which is inferior and not superior to the constitutional provision.
So, Mr. Kutepa, it sounds to me as though you are saying that that election should not have held. It sounds like that's what you're saying. But we'll break that down. Interestingly, we're joined on the program tonight by the REC in Anambra State, Inec REC in Anambra State, Dr. Nkwechukwu Orji. He joins us live from the thick of things, as it were. Dr. Orji, it's good to have you on Politics Today. I know you're a regular face now, not just on Politics Today, but, I mean, regarding this election, as it were, from the build-up up till this moment. So let me ask you, regarding the conduct of the supplementary election today, what is your early assessment of what played out between, is it 10 a.m., is it 12 noon, and 4 p.m. today?
My sense is that everything has gone very well. We made quite a serious mobilization, in the previous days. Immediately we received the information that a supplementary election is required for today. We began our plans, and I think that we are happy with what we achieved today.
So, in terms of mobilization and logistics, because clearly in a lot of polling units, elections started way behind schedule. In fact, as at 10, 11, even 12, we had some of the ad hoc officials still, loitering around the office, the local government office. And one was wondering, we thought this was meant to happen hours before 10 a.m. Don't forget, the election was even shifted to 10 a.m. So regarding this mobilization and logistics, what does that mean exactly when you say that was a problem? Can you give us the nitty-gritty of that? What specifically was a problem?
Okay, let me just say it clear. Yesterday we began mobilization for this election. And the first initial team we sent out to go to Ihiala to prepare the grounds for our intervention had major challenges. We were attacked, two teams from our office were attacked on the way to Ihiala. They sustained various forms of injuries. In fact, some of them are still at the University of Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital fighting for their life as we speak. So that was a major setback for us. So we had to pull back. I mean, the first set of people that were able to get themselves into Ihiala arrived around 10 p.m. yesterday. So that was a major challenge. By the time we were able to regroup and to be able to take control of the environment, it was late into this morning.
And it begs the question, hearing that they were attacked by who? And I mean, I expect that they have security deployment around them. I mean, the police has deployed, what, 34,000 men, and that's aside the NSCDC and others. And I imagine for Ihiala, you have substantial reinforcement. So, was that a failure of security, failure of intelligence? What exactly happened?
It's not my place to make clear that. But what I would say is that, we could not establish. I think the security agencies are on this. But the point is that that attack was a major setback.
So pointedly, were they accompanied by security agencies?
Sure, they were.
Was the accompaniment, was it enough?
I cannot state whether it was enough, because I mean, if you are doing electoral operation, you are moving a large number of people, and people go in different sequence, you know, and then they have to be escorted by I think they suffered an ambush, so it's really hard to describe.
We really hope and pray that they recover quick. I mean, they were working for the nation, I mean, on this assignment when they were ambushed. And it raises a question, from what you have heard so far, do you know who attacked them? Do you know if this was just a random attack or it was planned by a group? What exactly do you know so far?
I have not really paid attention to understanding what happened, because all our minds was getting Ihiala out of the way so that we can be able to conclude the Anambra governorship election. And that is our focus for now.
So the question also that comes up time and again, and I think that has been brought up in recent times, is the synergy between Inec and security agencies. This is some sort of post-mortem, because I think it's important to diagnose areas we can improve on. People have commended Inec, I should say, in some areas, but clearly there are areas we can improve on. So regarding security, maybe with the Commissioner of Police or with the man in charge of security, how would you describe a synergy between Inec and security agencies?
I think that we have had good synergy. We have worked together nicely, the security agencies and Inec. And that the result is that we are able to conduct the Anambra governorship election. This is one election that many people didn't give any chance. This is one election that failure would have, been a major setback for democracy in this country. And we have been able to pull it off. It is the synergy of the Commission and the security agencies that led to this. And I think that it's something that is highly commendable.
Well, I did expect that you were going to say that. But so let's come back to logistics, Dr. Orji, because this is a joint work, right? This is also our civic duty to ensure that we keep improving on our electoral process. So when you look at reasons, top reasons that are given for, elections not really performing up to par in Nigeria, you hear issues of logistics, late arrival of materials, issues like vote buying, violence, and the rest. So we've touched on the violence side, but about logistics, really, for one more time, if we could just sort this out. What happened to the transportation plans? Because we saw buses that were parked right there, and they were not one, they were not two or three, and we saw people still waiting as well. So is it that the transporters were not paid, they were not mobilized on time, or the people did not want to be deployed? What exactly happened there?
I mean, election is a reflection of the state of the nation. And it shows the level of development of different sectors of the Nigerian society. We are dealing with a transport system that is not very organized, a transport system that is highly privatized, and then you have to find a way of bringing the operators into the system to work with your timelines. This is something that has been extremely difficult to achieve. Because these are people that are not used to working in an organized way. An election has to follow an organized template. And you have to submit your system sometimes to their whims and caprices. And that's what we face on a daily basis.
So in terms of lessons learned, Dr. Orji, I know this will form a major part of conversation with Inec, stakeholders, CSOs, and other arms of government moving forward. What would you say has been the biggest lesson for you during the conduct of this election?
For Anambra 2021, I think that one thing I'm taking out of this is that once there's a will, there will be a way. I salute the sacrifices of the staff of the Commission. I salute the determination of the Commission in itself to go ahead with this election, which many people did not give us a chance at all to in the last few weeks. I have seen many people who didn't believe that Anambra election would be conducted. But today, hopefully by the end of the day, we'll be concluding that process. So for the Commission, I think that one thing we have drawn from this is to constantly push Once we have set out our goals, our timelines, our guidelines, our schedules, we push it through. Secondly, for me, I think that we have to sustain engagement and collaboration. It is our engagement and collaboration with the security agencies, especially, that help to, in the success we have achieved these last few days.
Final note, Dr. Orji. I was having a conversation with Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kutepa, just before you joined, and he was saying that according to the Constitution, that the winner is clear, and it sounded like he was wondering why we needed to do the supplementary election. And a lot of other people have asked also that which parties, which candidates are vying this time around? Is it for all candidates or just for 3 frontline or 2 frontline candidates? If you could just touch on that as we wind down.
No, the decision we took on Sunday night was basically to bring Ihiala local governments at par with other local governments in the state, because that was the only local government out of the 21 in the state where election did not take place. And we felt that because that local government has been left out, it's important that it completes the 21 so that we can make a determination of the 25% of the votes cast in 2/3 of the local governments.
Okay, so was this between the APGA candidates, the PDP candidate, and the APC candidate, or between 2 of them? How many?
The election was for all the 18 candidates that are in the race. So it's not for a few of them. It's for everybody.
Well, Dr. Nkwachuku Orji, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to update Nigerians on the conduct of the election in Anambra State. Thank you again, and we wish you the very best.
My pleasure.
So let's head back to our Abuja studio where Mr. Kutepa is sitting by. So, Mr. Kutepa, you heard the Inec rec there saying they needed to bring in Ihiala local government area. So, is that enough for you? Is that enough explanation as to why this had to be done?
Kayode, I think Nigerians will need to respect our constitution more than to engage in administrative and political decisions that may be in breach of our constitution. The views I have held are clear to anyone who can read and write the Nigerian constitution. So I wouldn't want to press more, but I think a time has come when we need to interrogate our electoral process from what the resident electoral commissioner, Dr. Orji, had said. You will agree with me that if we had adhered strictly to the provisions of Section 179, subsection 2 of our Constitution, the necessity of people being attacked and being in the hospital would have not been there. Our draftsmen of our Constitution had everything in mind when they put a ceiling and a provisions in our Constitution how a candidate either in the governorship election or in the presidential election should emerge. And time has come when we should pay absolute respect, obedience, and fidelity to Nigerian Constitution. After all, Section 1, subsection 1 of the Constitution said the Constitution is supreme. And what that means is that every other thing, including administrative decisions, must kowtow and bow to the supremacy of Nigerian Constitution. And the Supreme Court says so in Inec versus Balarabe Musa, when Inec purported at that material time to bring out guidelines on how a political party should be registered. So my take is that I have consistently held this view. I canvass it in the court, but one day maybe we'll take a closer look at it, because I sympathize with those who are in the hospital, and like he rightly admitted, you talk about security agencies, and I had my doubt as to whether, notwithstanding the quantum of the numbers of security agencies, whether indeed they are psychologically prepared and in terms of weapons at their disposal compared to those who have taking it upon themselves to make Nigeria ungovernable.
Right.
So for me, time has come when we must give the name that is due for what we need to say, and that name is called truth. There's no way you can give a baptismal name of wrong to truth and make it to become truth. So
Mr. Okutepa,
we look at our constitution.
Right. Well, time has also come for us to take a break on the program, but would like to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on this issue. Mr. Jibrin Okutepa is a senior advocate of Nigeria, and he's been speaking on the conduct of that election in Anambra State and the legal and constitutional perspectives to that. Thank you again for your time, Mr. Okutepa.
Thank you, Kayode. God bless you. I hope one day my name will be properly spelled.
Well, that's noted, Mr. Okutepa. We'll go on a break now, and when we return, we'll shuttle between what's currently playing out in Anambra State and what played out in the National Assembly earlier in the day with the passing of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. To what extent will that improve our electoral process? That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Let's now head over to the National Assembly, where the Senate and the House of Representatives have finally passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, approving electronic transmission of results. Well, the Senate adopted the report of a conference committee which approved electronic transmission of results and direct primaries after it constituted a 7-man conference committee to meet with members of the House of Representatives Conference Committee to harmonize the differences in the Senate and House versions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Now, with the successful harmonization of the bill, it means the National Assembly has completed the process of amending the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The clean copy is expected to be sent to the President subsequently for his assent. And to discuss this, Senator Kabir Gaya is the Chairman Senate Committee on Inec, joins us from our Abuja studio. And right next to him is Mr. Clement Nwako, is the Director of PLAC and an election observer. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program. I know that the Anambra supplementary election...
And good evening, Nigerians.
Good evening. I know the Anambra supplementary election is one of the biggest stories in the country today, but then the National Assembly passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, sort of like going pari passu with what's happening in Anambra, so to speak. So let me begin with Senator Gaya. Regarding what you've seen play out in Anambra, but pre-election, during election, and I don't know whether to call this post-election as it were, but the election is still on. So what has been your assessment, really, of the Anambra governorship election as the chair of a Senate committee on Inec?
First of all, I'm impressed with the performance of the Inec Commission for trying to do the best they could during this election. Most Nigerians and some of us also believe that this election may not be free, fair, and credible, and maybe because of the insecurity situations in that terrain, we felt that it was difficult to even hold the election. But we had to invite the INEC chairman and all his commissioners and to the Senate, and we discussed the issue of insecurity, whether they could be able to hold that election or not. But they assured us that yes, they could hold the election, and I'm happy the election has taken place, and they are doing the supplementary one today, which I think must have been concluded by now. So really I appreciate the effort of the Commission by doing their best. And I think they used part of this transmission of some results. That's why most of Nigerians, by Saturday evening, they've already known who is the winner of the governorship election. So actually this one local government election which took place today didn't make much difference.
Well, you know, Senator Gaya, INEC is always quick, especially when we speak with Mr. Okoye, to say, well, what they do is upload and not transmission electronically. They always use that term, that they're doing electronic upload. But I haven't heard your assessment. Let me ask Mr. Nwako still on this, because I remember that we had a conversation about this time last week about your expectations and perhaps your fears ahead of this election. So haven't seen the one on the 6th and then today's supplementary election. What is your assessment recalling the fears that you had?
Well, I think it's always going to be a challenge with supplementary elections where elections are not concluded. And today, I think the biggest concern was, of course, the late start of polls, the violence that took place. If you recall, in the main elections, there was really very little incidents occurring. But today, there was violence and there were incidents that were not previously seen. I think also when you look at today, the polling was delayed in several places, and I think that we need to get, and we have to understand why, but of course logistics is always an issue. But looking at the overall performance, I think in the light of the challenges, the insecurity created by different combination of actors, Inec and the people of Anambra State must be commended for taking this past the goal line. But certainly, this is not the kind of environment we should see in an election. And I think this country needs to be able to get past an election that is overwhelmed by violence, by logistics challenges that sometimes confronts the Electoral Commission, and by the deployment of factors that sometimes hinders our elections. But I think ticking off Anambra as concluded helps us to look ahead towards the next elections, and hopefully Anambra is the beginning of a test run on a larger scale of the beavers that Inec is introducing. And I'm sure that talking about the electoral bill that both the House and Senate approved today, that the issues of implementation of the several provisions of that bill or the act when the president signs it, and we hope that happens quite quickly, will become important for our electoral process looking ahead.
You know, I think the passing of the bill by the Senate and the House at this time presents a very good opportunity for us to assess, you know, the content of that Electoral Act Amendment bill against the conduct of elections, how it will improve our elections. For example, what we saw in Anambra. So, Senator Gaya, if you could tell Nigerians, really, I mean, we know about the electronic transmission of results and the direct primaries provision, but when you bring this amendment bill and then you look at what has played out in Anambra State, in reality, how does this amendment, how do you see it improving some of the issues that we saw play out during the election in Anambra State?
Well, first of all, the essence of amendment of any act is to improve on the present situation of realities of election process. The act was made, or the amendment of the act was made based on our experience during elections, the problems we face, the problem that Inec faces, the problem even the voters faces during the election. So therefore, an act is raised in order to bring an amendment to the act in such a way that it will be much easier, more credible and more transparent for people to hold elections at various locations or at their constituencies. So that's one of the major reasons for this amendment. And in most cases here, it plays whereby the issue of using of electronic machines or electronic gadgets for elections, it helps a lot. You remember last time when we introduced card reader, most of people were against the card reader because they felt that it's going to be used for manipulation of result. But that card reader helps in determining how many people come to a polling unit and how many people were really there during the voting. In other times when we don't have a card reader, 10, 20 people can come to a polling unit, and later they write results that 500 people were there and elections was made and the social number goes to a favored candidate. So, but when we introduce card reader, it became difficult. You find that in most polling units, you get less than 500, unless we're in the cities where really people were who register in that location. So definitely that's another advantage. And when it comes to the collation of results, it's now easier and bring peace when results are transmitted. You find that when results were transmitted for this issue of Anambra elections, by afternoon or evening, people have already known how the trend of the election is going on. So therefore, people now, the winners now are determined even before the end of the final collation, and therefore it brings peace. So when you know that your party is losing sadly, you have no basis of making any trouble. And when your party is winning, you know that you make sure you maintain the peace in that state so that the results are announced for you to be declared as the winner. So therefore, this electoral helps a lot. And thirdly, when we introduce these primaries, which we said that in the next elections, primaries will be conducted directly with the supervision of the Inec, because we are going to the register of the political parties during those primaries, because I believe that we have, because we now went for a drive for members to join our party. They got a membership card. So the only you can give them a right is for them to vote a candidate that they really wanted. I was a product of direct primaries in 1991 when I contested for governorship. People came to my constituencies and voted for me simply because they like me as a young man, and I've given them an agenda which I believe if I become governor, I'll implement those, and people were accepted. And during those primaries, they came at ward level in mass and voted for me to become the candidate of that party, NRC, at that particular time.
So,
and after the announcement of the candidate for the election, you find that those who voted you to become a candidate, they now work hard to support you during the general election. It makes you have more people campaigning for you, because for anybody who voted for him, you make sure that he extends that that courtesy to make sure that his candidate wins in the general election. So I believe in the Anambra election, yes, there is an improvement, but there was issue of insecurity in that locations. That's what matters, and that's why we have to, the security agents were used to make sure they subvert any kind of crisis.
Let me rephrase this, Senator Gaya. If I could just rephrase it in another light. So if that amendment bill, which has been passed now, if it was already signed into law before the Anambra election, the November 6th Anambra election, and this supplementary election that held today, would it have combated the issues of logistics, mobilization, the issues of security, and low voter turnout, which you have talked about? Would this bill, if it were a law already, would it have adequately sorted those issues?
It would have made a lot of changes, because even on the issue of the way the election is conducted, the issue of transparency, the issue of trying to make sure that people come out to participate. You know, the turnout is very low, but I think also that depends on the mobilization and the kind of candidate we have for the political parties, because in some places where you have, I didn't say these candidates are not sound, but where you have more sound and credible, the candidate comes out more. In some places, you have difficulties because of insecurity. People didn't come out to vote, like in Anambra. It's not mainly the issue of candidate. But when at least this electoral power has been passed, I'm sure it would have enhanced the position of the election in Anambra State. And that's another bill that we are trying to get it passed, which will also help tremendously to the conduct of the election, is the Electoral Offences Commission. Most people commit an offense during election or after, and they are not brought to book. But when this bill is passed, it also talks of offenses to punish even those who are either electoral officers or even anybody who creates trouble during at the venue of the elections or at the polling units or at the collection center will be punished under the law. So therefore, that will also help a lot, and we're working hard now to complete the Electoral Commission Offences Bill, which will certainly help in trying to have sanity during elections.
So that's another one to look forward to, Senator. But let me take this back to Mr. Nwako. I mean, time and again, I've heard people say our problem in Nigeria, our challenge really is not laws, that we have a lot of laws, sound legislations, that our challenge is in implementing them. So when you see that the National Assembly has again passed another bill for electoral practice or the conduct of elections in Nigeria, and then you look at the conduct of election we saw with the existing laws, where really lies the problem? Is it with the laws, with the implementation of those laws, or what exactly?
Thank you, Kayode. First of all, to say that the significance of what happened in the National Assembly today is really deep. What you did see in the National Assembly was a repeal and reenactment of a new law to guide elections in Nigeria. So it's not like you put an amendment bill. It's actually a repealed the old bill and reenacted into law a new bill, and that would come into effect once the president assents to it. Yes, you're right, there is a question of implementation, and I think that's the next phase for a lot of us who are following the electoral process. How is this new electoral law going to be implemented? What are the responsibilities under the law? As we speak, there has to be a full analysis of the new law by the Electoral Commission, by the National Assembly, and all the stakeholders to see what are the responsibilities in the law for everyone who is involved with the elections. The distinguished Senator and Chairman of the Inec Committee, and I must really, in this program, commend his ability to lead this process to passage of the new electoral bill. I think his leadership was incredibly good, and I think that the leadership that was provided by the chair of the House Committee, Honorable Aisha Duku, both of them working together is what has brought us to where we are today, and we really must express deep gratitude to both chairmen with respect to what has happened. But looking at the bill, I think that there are different issues. The Senator has mentioned the aspect of the bill respecting direct primaries. I think always when you look at the issue of how nominations are made and candidates have emerged, I have been involved with the electoral process and the National Assembly for quite a while, looking at the amendments that were passed in 2010, the 3 or 4 other amendments that were made to the Electoral Act subsequently. None has left out the issue of Section 87, which is on how candidates emerge. That has always been controversial, and the challenge there is, how do you deal with human behavior? How do you deal with rules that parties establish? How do you deal with the party's constitution and ensure that the parties are not hijacked by those who can pay for the parties or pay for the use of the parties, as we have seen? And I think that that's the point you make, Kayode, the human element to implementation of the laws. And most times what you have found, and that's what you have seen with the issue of whether it is direct or indirect primaries, is that it is seized by those who can pay for it, and they begin to manipulate it. And so level playing field doesn't exist. Proper candidates cannot emerge. Candidates who can win election for the parties do not emerge. And so you see desperation on the field amongst politicians, and that results in different kinds of electoral offenses, whether it's vote buying, thuggery, violence, and all sorts of challenges. Of course, you do have the challenge on the part of the election management body, that it has to constantly be confronted with the problem of logistics. If you look back to several elections, as far back as 2007 even, which was really a very bad election, on to 2011, 2015, 2019, logistics is always a challenge. So the expectation we all have now is that with a new law, the election management body is able to sit down and decide what is it that he's been doing in the past that needs to be changed, needs to be reformed. And he needs to do that with stakeholders, with those who have seen elections come through several years, and work out how best to ensure that some of these repeats of challenges do not occur.
You know what's quite interesting, Mr. Nwako?
What happens to political parties?
You know what's quite interesting, Mr. Nwako? I mean, that amendment is not even law yet, and there's controversy already. Just moments ago, the APC Tripartite Committee met with Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the State House, and it would appear as though the governors, as it were, are against this direct primary provision in the bill. So let me ask Senator Gaya, I'm not sure if you know the outcome of that meeting yet, but perhaps you saw this coming already. And it looks like maybe the National Assembly members and perhaps the governors are in for an impasse, as it were. Did you get the buy-in of the APC Tripartite Committee regarding this direct primaries? Because what they're saying is it leaves the party with no option, just saying you have to go direct and no other option?
Well, first of all, from what you said, we had a meeting yesterday at the party caucus meeting, and the essence of that meeting is internal, to discuss internal issues within the party in order to strengthen the position of that party. And actually, the meeting was done, and we actually left the meeting happy and satisfied. And I believe there is nothing like the issue of governors versus senators or versus National Assembly members. That's not the case. The issue is that we wanted the democracy to go down to the grassroots. So that's what Mr. President Buhari has been saying. Take the grassroots report, take the party down to the people, because they are the people that came up and voted us into office. And we need to give them the responsibilities also to choose their leaders. And by doing the direct primary, it means you are allowing the people to choose their leaders. And in direct primary, it means you have to go around to every ward and campaign. So if you are not sure of yourself or you are not popular, you will simply from day one know that there is no need for you even to contest, because direct primaries means getting close, getting to your people.
Senator
and let the people vote the candidate.
So the question now would be,
instead of the party, just
pardon me, let me just put this in. You can add that as we wind down. So, because they say that the final decision lies with President Muhammadu Buhari on the direct primaries provision. So, just to be clear, did you have the buy-in, the support of governors and the president in making this decision?
Well, I believe the next person to deal with the bill is President Muhammadu Buhari, and I believe this bill is his baby, because he is always a grassroots man, and he always believed in giving the grassroots the opportunity to choose their leader. It was the grassroots that chooses President Muhammadu Buhari. It is the power of the grassroots that people really, others that supported him and make him to win the election. So therefore, I believe President Buhari is going to endorse this position, because he has been saying that give the power to the people. And that's what we did. We gave the power to the people at the grassroots. Any category member of the party is entitled to vote for a candidate he wants. And that's why the party this year went on for additional drive for membership. And we have got members in a party who have registered, and that means giving them the now opportunity to choose who they wanted. So I believe there will be not much problem. I believe Mr. President is going to leave a legacy, because this bill that is being passed today, it shows a different view of election process.
Well, Senator Guy, I wish we had more time, really, to delve into some of these nitty-gritties.
We go by the laws in the bill, I'm sure we'll have a credible and fair elections in 2023.
That's certainly the hope. Senator Kabir Gaya, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Inec, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. And Mr. Clement Wako, who's the Director of PLAC and Election Observer. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you on the program tonight. Thank you. And that's the show. But don't forget, Collation of results continue in Anambra by 9 p.m. and Channels Television is heavily on the ground to give you all the updates you need to know about that election. So stay with us where you're home for the news. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.